All right, guys, are there any questions over the homework? So, since there's no questions, we'll look at today's assignment, or today's lesson. And what we're looking at today is...
Soda water. Do you have any fives that I could?
Yes.
Sorry and thank you.
You're good. So we're looking at, or the equations we're looking at today is going to be the set of all points equidistant from a given point. And we know exactly what those are, yes? Circles. Because a circle is the set of all points equidistant from the center, a given point. Now there's two main equations that we can have for it. We either have x squared plus y squared equals r squared, or x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. In both cases, these are the exact same equation. One of them, the center is at 0, 0, and the other, the center is at h comma k, at a point other than 0. All right. I'll figure out what I did with that pen in a minute. But in either case, it's the exact same equation. So we're just mainly looking at circles. Now, the first thing we're going to do is finding the equation of a circle. So for this here. Now they gave us the graph of the circle, so this here, and we just want to find the equation that represents it. So our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Now they did give us the center. The center is our point h comma k, and for us it is the point and we'll need the radius. Now we can plug the center in because we can say x minus -3 plus y minus 1. H and k. Now it is going to work out that h is always going to go with x and k is always going to go with y. Those two always go together. They're paired up that way. And when we look at ellipses tomorrow, we'll see x and h, y and k will go together. And we look at hyperbolas on Friday, x and h, y and k will still go together. They will pair up that way. Now the only thing we're missing is the radius. And the radius is the distance from the center to a point on the circle. So we can just use our distance formula. And the distance formula is our x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Now we can put our two x values together. So it'd be our -3 minus 2 squared plus r1 minus -1 squared. And at this point here, we can type the whole thing into the calculator, let the calculator do the calculations for us. If we wanted to do this by hand, 3 minus 2 is going to be -5 squared. 1 minus -1 is 2. Well, apparently it wants to scroll. Because 5 squared is going to be 25. 2 squared is 4. So it tells us that it's the square root of 29. Now we don't have to simplify that. It actually works out that it doesn't simplify to a nice number. But we can leave it as the square root of 29. Even if it had been something nicer, say square root of 12. Square root of 12 does reduce. It's 2 square root of 3. But in the formula, because that's what we're trying to find, we have to plug it back in here. We're going to have to do what? We have to square it. So if I leave it as the square root of 29, well, it will simplify. We'll have x plus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to 29. Because the square root of 29 squared is 29. The square root and square will cancel. Even if it had been, say, the square root of 12, which does reduce to 2 square root of 3, well, when we square it, well, 12, square root of 12 squared is 12. 2 square root of 3 squared is still 12. If we're just finding the equation, simplifying that radical doesn't make a big difference. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. This was just an example. We don't need it. Any questions on any of this here? Are you ready for the next one? Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you this here. I'm going to write in the center for these two if we end up doing both. You can write it underneath. If I was you, I'd write it underneath the problem, not in the middle. Because I'm going to write in the middle so that we can see both problems. So you can still see the work and the problem at the same time. Now, here with any of these, I'm always going to start off with this form. Y minus h squared plus, so x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. I always start off with this form. Even though when we look at 2a, the center is 0, 0, we could use the other form, but I would rather stick with one form, one equation. Because if we did it with the 2, well, it's all based off the center. Is the center at 0, 0, or is it away from 0, 0? But if we use this one here, when we plug in 0, 0, well, x minus 0 is just x, and it is squared. Y minus 0 just gives us y, and it is. So we still end up back with that other formula. We don't have to try to keep track, is this going to be the one time we use it or not? This other one will still get us there. Now the only thing we're missing is the radius. And we can find it by using the distance formula. So we can say 1 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 0 squared. And again, when using the distance formula, we just need to make sure the x values are together, the y values are together, and we simplify. Well, 1 minus 0 is just going to be 1 squared. 5 minus 0 is 5 squared. 1 squared is 1. 5 squared is 25, which gets us the square root of 26. Will the square root of 26 simplify? I mean, yes, it would. Because 2, 4 goes into it. No, it doesn't. Because it's 2 and 13. So actually, it doesn't simplify. 28 would have. But we can plug it in here, the square root of 26. But the square root of 26 squared is and that's it. Questions on this so far? Questions on anything we've done so far? Are you ready for the next one? Do we need to see another one of these? Okay. Let's look at these here. These here, we're going to graph them. So let's find the equation first. So again, we're starting off with x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Well, they gave us the center, h and k, so x minus negative 2 squared plus y minus negative 1 squared is equal to the radius squared. Well, the radius is 9. Because again, we're just plugging in for h, k, and r. And when we simplify this, the negative negative makes a plus. So we have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 9 squared, which is 81. And that's it. We just plugged it in. Questions on this so far? Now we need to graph it. When we graph it, we always start at the center. So our center is -2, -1. And for us, a circle is the set of all points equidistant from the center. Well, how far are they away from the center? 9, yes? Now, trying to go 9 in this direction here would not be easy because it's not going to be a nice point. So we won't go that way. But one direction that we can go is straight up because I can count off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and make a point because we can go straight up 9. We can also go to the right 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and make a point. We can also go straight down. Try not to scroll that far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to make a point. We can also go to the left 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere about here. And those would be the main 4 points on the circle, yes? Then all we would need to do is make the circle. Or just connect those 4 points. I'm not going to count off for accuracy. You just need to create a circle, draw a circle making those 4 points connect. If it's not an exact circle, that's fine. I got a good circle mainly because the smart board's smart and it can do it for me. Questions on this here? Let's look at this one here because we're going to skip one. For finding the equation, we can just start with the center, x minus 1 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to the radius squared. So I'd start off with just plugging the information in. So we get x minus 1 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to 4. Well, we can simplify this a little bit. X minus 1 is not going to, but y minus 0 squared is the same as just y squared, and 4 squared is 16. Questions on how we found the equation? Now we can plot the point first, 1, 0. We get this point here. Now to get the other points, we're going to go up, down, left, and right 4 from it. 4, 4, 4, 4. And then well, that was not a great circle. That was better. And that's it. Questions on these here? Write the equation of a circle if the endpoints of the diameter are the points 7, 6, and -1, -8. Well, we need the center and we need the radius. The radius is half the diameter, but we also need to find the center. And I'm going to find the center first. So we'll use the other equation we had yesterday. Midpoint. Because part of the reason we call it the diameter is it's 2 points that go through, a line connecting 2 points that go through the center. So the midpoint of these two endpoints of the diameter would be the center. And to find the midpoint, we add the x values together and divide by 2. So we'd add 7 and -1. We'd also add the y value, so 6 and -8 together. Well, 7 plus -1 is 6, and 6 divided by 2 is 6 plus -8 is -2, and -2 divided by 2 is -1. So our center is the point -3, 1. So for our equation, we could say x minus 3 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to. We're plugging that in. Now we just need the radius. What I'm going to use is I'm going to pick the center. I'm going to use the center as one of my 2 points. Now we just need to pick the other one. Which one do we want to use? Which one? So -1, -8. And if we use this here and plug it into the calculator, so second square root, parentheses 3 minus, so here's -1 squared plus -1 minus -8 squared. We get the square root of 65. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Say 3 minus, I think the other point was 7, 6. So 3 minus 7 squared plus -1 minus 6 squared. Yes? What do you think we'll get? Square root of 65. As again, by definition, a circle is a set of all points equidistant from the center. So if I have the center, no matter which 2 points I pick that are on the circle, it should have the same distance. Now if we'd picked, so 7 minus, because the other was -1, 8. This one. -1 squared plus 6 minus -8 squared. So if I pick the 2 endpoints, will I get the square root of 65? Yeah. Because again, the diameter is twice the radius, so you double the amount. Which would tell us that the radius is the square root of 65. And if we square it to plug it back into the formula, we get now, not every radius will be a radical, because I mean, if the distance formula worked out to be a whole number, then we would get a whole number. Questions on this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far? We have one last one. Now for this here, we just want to find the center and radius. Now they gave us the equation of the circle in standard form, quote unquote standard form, in expanded form. So we need to get it back into our sets of parentheses squared. So there's 2 things we want to do first. One, I want the constant term by itself. I want the constant term on the other side. And the other thing, so it's equal 12, is I want to get the x's and y's next to each other. So we'd have x squared minus 8x plus, I'm going to leave a blank, plus y squared plus 12y plus blank. is what we're wanting to do is I want to get this rewritten as a set of parentheses squared plus a set of parentheses squared is equal to a number. The first one's going to have x, the second one will have y. Now, whenever we have these sets of parentheses squared, because in the general form, scroll down just a little bit, this was our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Yes? We have a set of parentheses squared. We called it a perfect square trinomial. Yes? Well, we covered these in our chapter over quadratics, when we talked about quadratics, and we had a way to make a perfect square trinomial. C is equal to b over 2 squared, or completing the square. So what we're going to do is complete the square on these so that we can have them back as perfect square trinomials. So the first one, for x, we have negative 8. So negative 8 over 2 squared. Well, negative 8 divided by 2 is? So we'll add 16 here. But if we do it to one side, we have to now we can go on and finish off the set of parentheses because it worked out that whatever was inside the parentheses before we squared it is what went inside the parentheses there. So x minus 4 squared, if we actually factor that back out, would be x squared minus 8x plus 16. All right, now we need to do the same thing for y. This time the value is 12. So we have 12 over 2 squared. Well, 12 divided by 2 is? Which is 36. Now the number inside the parentheses, before we squared it was 6. So inside these parentheses would be plus 6. Now the last part we have over here is 12 plus 16 plus 36, which is 64. Well, we're almost done. Let's pick this one. Now the center is our h comma k. H, k. So what would the value of h be? Because x minus h, x minus 4, the x's match, the minuses match, so h is 4. The other one, y's match. So k is 6, but it would be as we pull the values out, we have to change the sign from what it has written. Now our radius. Well, 64 is our r squared. So we have to take the square root of 64, which is, so the center and radius of the circle, the center is 4, negative 6, and the radius is 8. Any questions on this here? And that is it.